As I settle in for an evening of indulgence, I'm excited to dive into some of the most devious and delightfully vengeful stories from the ProRevenge subreddit. Tonight, I'll be sharing tales of clever retribution, cunning pranks, and just a hint of mischief, all brought to you straight from the internet's darkest corners. Bartender followed me into the bathroom to shake me down for money after he mistakenly thought I hadn't tipped him. Years ago, I went to a bar in Santa Fe and it was a typical upscale hotel bar that catered to rich tourists. I generally prefer more humble digs, but my bill invited us, and booze is booze. I'm in line at the bar, patiently waiting my turn, when the bartender's buddies show up and jump the line, stepping in front of me and chatting him up. I have a lot of restraint, probably too much, so I stood back and waited, and when the bartender finally made eye contact, I gave him a douche just gives me a mocking right back. Finally got my drink, and even though he tossed my card at me after all that, years of retail have rendered me incapable of leaving a $0 tip. So I gave him around 10%, which is still far less than standard for me. My bill didn't share my sympathy and gave the douche nothing when he got his round. 20 minutes or so go by, my drink's caught up with bladder, and I pop into the restroom. I do my business, step away from the urinal, turn around, and there stands the bartender, blocking my path. He apparently confused my name with my bill's name, thought I was the one that didn't leave anything, and asked me why I didn't tip. I told him, quite honestly, that he was acting like a dick, but I had still tipped him. Whether he believed me or not, he rolled his eyes and walked away. I washed up and walked out, and my wife immediately asked me what happened, because she said she noticed that he ran into the bathroom as soon as he saw me go in. I relayed what happened, and my wife, fearsome woman she is, marched to the bar and asked what he thought he was doing, and suggested he make sure he stalks the right person next time. Despite all that happened, I still probably would have let it go the next day, except he does the one thing I wasn't going to let go. Waved my wife off, rolled his eyes again, and turned his back on her. So, we head home. I make myself another drink, and sat down to do a little work on the computer. Specifically, I looked up the bar, looked up the hotel that it was in, found an org chart, and eventually sleuthed my way into the hotel chain CEO's email address. And then I write what remains my literary magnum opus. I didn't huff and puff. I didn't cuss. I didn't threaten to sue their asses off. I told the story essentially the way I tell it here, if not a little more detailed, and simply suggested that a more litigious-minded individual than myself might take the issue of being stalked into the restroom to be shaken down to the courts, should this bartender's behavior be condoned. To this day, I can almost feel the domino effect of raised eyebrows I set into motion. The CEO may or may not have been familiar with the name of the little bar in one of his hotels, but the COO certainly knew it, as she did my name, my bill's name, and the bartender's name when she called me the next day. She was very apologetic and assured me they'd take care of it. 2 days, an email from the CEO himself, and another call from the coup later, they informed me they had completed their investigation and extended a $100 gift card to their property, should I give them another chance. My wife and I had went and a few drinks, in the restaurant, not the bar obviously, and a nice meal for our trouble, and haven't been back since. If that was the end of the tale, it would be rewarding enough, but about 3 years later, I got a bonus from the universe. I was at another bar in town, and one of the bartenders happened to be a family friend. While playing catch-up, he mentioned he had worked a few years at said shakedown establishment, so I told him about my experience there. He knew the story, but hadn't known it involved me. He grinned and told me to fall out. The day after this all went down, our douchebag bartender was called into the office for a meeting, where he was greeted by his boss and the crew of the company that owned the hotel. They sat him down, and as a group, watched security footage of everything. Of him letting his buddies cut in line, of aping back my shrug, of him running after me to the bathroom, and of him disrespecting my wife. To be a fly on the wall, I'm a rate. Second best thing was my buddy being on shift at the time, and being told what had gone down with the CEO when Dashi McDouche was allowed to slink back to work. To his credit, he did tell my buddy he didn't know what he had been thinking. It was also clear he thought me a dick. It doesn't keep me awake at night. Probably the best part is that he had just won a Best Bartender in Santa Fe award a couple of weeks prior, likely why he wasn't fired, but also probably why he was acting like such an entitled dick. I say best part because 1. I'm still glad he didn't get fired, and two, he went overnight from being the golden boy to being a company-wide pariah that had been told that the CEO was disappointed in him. Moral of the story: if you find a mellow enough guy like me, he might be patient of poor customer service, might even tolerate a weird bathroom confrontation, but don't mess with his wife. And now for the next story. Anyone know what I can do to get revenge on someone who robbed me blind? Literally? I have their phone number. So here's the story. I met this girl online. Let's call her Lawanda. She seemed nice. Online. And then when I invited her in my home, as I couldn't drive anywhere because I'm blind, she stole two things from me. And when I confronted her by calling her after I noticed the items were gone after she left, she acted as though she didn't do anything because I couldn't see that she had taken the items. But I knew that the items were there before, and that they were gone by the time she left. I found out yesterday, a day after it happened, that she had a lengthy criminal history. I have her phone number. Anything I can do to scare her into giving up her address or location, or just anything at all, that would be great. She took advantage of a disabled person, me, and she needs to fucking pay for it and go back to the prison where she belongs. And now for the next story. Getting back at a supervisor who fired you. 6 months ago on Reddit, someone asked what is the worst instance of an employee sabotaging their old employer that you know. This response, @https www.reddit.com/Reddit comments 425. Ayo, how does the worst instance of an employee? I know a guy who was fired from a job by a supervisor he absolutely despised. Well, this supervisor had a daughter die in a car accident in her early teens. This guy would send his old supervisor free samples and stuff in his late daughter's name. This went on for years. When she should have graduated, he had companies send free graduation party samples for decorations, college applications, etc. all. I'm not sure if he is doing this to this day, but damn, he held a grudge. And now for the next story. High school drama queen got gone. This happened about 10 years ago. I had just started college, and I had gone to a 4-year college about 4 hours away from my hometown, where 90% of my friends still lived. Most of them had another year of high school left. Among this group of friends was a girl who we will call Becky. Becky was the biggest drama queen, gossip, and overall terrible human being. She was the popular girl who hung out with our group of lame arts kids, so that she would ensure that one. She was always the most cool. And two, she made sure everyone knew that they should feel grateful she would hang out with us. I never bought into Becky's crap, and I could see through her. However, my friends were a loyal bunch and were blinded by her. Nobody would listen to me. When I said, "Hey, she's causing drama, we need to drop her," I realized I had to be sneaky. So I was in my first semester of college, and a bit homesick. I called my friends back home one Friday night to find out what they were all up to. This was the early days of Facebook, so it wasn't open to high schoolers just yet. I called my friend, and who answered her phone? Becky. When she did, she told me that I was in college now, and that I should move on, and that my friends were done with me. I had it. I trolled her on MySpace, and sent her anonymous mean messages, pretended to be dudes online, and got her to admit to her life secret, gossip about our friends. Then I compiled it all into one big folder. I came home for Christmas break, and even though I wasn't invited to her family's annual Christmas bash, I ended up going as a friend's +1. I walked in with a present for the white elephant, and the gift was the folder. I knew I wanted my friend, let's call her Tina, to be the one to get my folder, so of course I hinted all night as to how great my gift was so that Tina would want it. Tina was Becky's best friend, and the one that Becky had talked the most shit on. Sure enough, my plan worked. Tina opened the present, the envelope, gave me a confused look, and then really noticed what was in the folder. She passed it along to everyone, and everyone got up and walked out of the Christmas party, apologized to me for not believing that she was wicked. She became a social outcast. Not only did word spread about our friends, but her cheerleader friends, etc., all stopped speaking to her. To this day, if someone new is introduced to the group, I warn them that if they mess with my friends, I will destroy them. They look at me in disbelief, and I say, "Just ask Becky." Who's Becky? Exactly. And now for the next story. Neighbors sued me after harassing my dog for months. Lost horribly. Several commenters telling me that you guys would enjoy this story. About 6 or 7 months ago, my neighbor got a drone. I don't mind people having hobbies, but for some reason he insisted on flying like the biggest jerk possible. He would hover in front of other houses and windows, try to race cars going down the road, and worst of all, he had a habit of flying his drone in my fenced backyard, buzzing over my dog, diving low just over my dog's head before circling around to do it again. My dog isn't small, he's about 7 tubs and a Malamute, but the drone terrified him, and I was worried what would happen if it hit him. I asked my neighbor several times to please not fly in my yard and explained that it was scaring my dog. He basically told me to get lost and laughed in my face. When it still continued, I called the police. Unfortunately, there wasn't much they could do other than ask him to please not fly over my house property. Finally, in late December it happened. My dog got tired of his shit and managed to catch the drone right as it was diving towards him. He shredded the drone. The thing was just a jumbled mess of wires and plastic. Neighbor was pissed. He stormed over to my house swearing and threatening me, which I ignored. A week later, I got a summons to small claims court. He wanted $900 for the cost of his drone and an additional $300 for supposedly denying him access to his property. The drone sat in my yard for a couple hours before it was retrieved. Fuck that. He could have killed my dog. I don't have kids or a girlfriend. I just have my dog, who is my best friend for the past 7 years. That dog has moved with me 3 times, was there when I graduated college, saw me buy my first house and my first new car. I love my dog. Went to legal advice. Got some great help from them. Turns out, him suing me was the best thing to ever happen. When we got to small claims court, the judge basically laughed away his claims that I had intentionally trained my dog to attack his drone. But little did he know I was prepared. I had dozens of photos of my yard showing it was impossible for him to accidentally fly that low to my dog. Videos of him harassing my dog in the past, and I had saved all my medical bills from taking my dog to the vet. $700 for an x-ray. Check. Another $250 to sedate him during. Why not? Don't want him being uncomfortable. Full dental exam with tooth cleaning repair. $400. Then there was the cost of anti-anxiety meds, and a secondary checkup, wet food for a week in case his teeth were hurt, and extra just for good measure. In the end, the asshole ended up owing me almost $2. Zero. And now is being investigated by the FAA for not having a registered drone and violating several FAA regulations concerning drone flight. Too near an airport, too close to other people, out of sight of operator, and while way above the maximum altitude. Enjoy never being allowed to fly drones again, Dick. Like and subscribe for more awesome daily Reddit content. And don't forget to hit the bell to get notified when I upload new videos.